We're gonna be in the book of Revelation. Revelation. Y'all know what I mean. It's been a while since I've done this. It's different than the back porch. I have got some rocking chair to see.
Get you one.
Might have to get a chair for it over. But it's good to be back in the house of the Lord this morning.
Amen.
I know there'll be people that's not, won't be here today, but for whatever reason, that's okay. We're going to talk a little bit about, I want to talk about what's going on. But I want to talk about it from the perspective of the church. And there's a lot in the book of Revelation about that. We're seeing prophecy, and we've been talking about it for a long time, the end time. And there's a lot of prophecy all over the Bible that tells us what's going on now. It's confusing. And all I can do is tell you what I got. I mean, I've told you this before. You take it and you chew on it. If you like it, swallow it. If you don't, spit it out. I ain't gonna like for me to say it that way, but that's about like, that's the way it is, you know. All I can do is give you what I got. And we'll just see it play out. We'll see what happens. It's hard to see prophecy before it happens. You can see it after it happens. And it was that way with Daniel. You know, in the last chapter of Daniel, Daniel saw a vision of the end times. We've been over this, but he asked the Lord, he said, what does this mean? He said, shut it up, Daniel. It'll be revealed in the last days. Knowledge will increase. So that knowledge is, we see it in the world, but we also see it in the church. In the last, I'm going to say 100 years, we've seen the Bible open up in ways that we hadn't, people before our time had. We've got revelation now, the word that people 50 years ago didn't have. Now, not basic doctrines, not about salvation as a whole, but I mean prophecies about what's going on in the world today. So, let's get started. Brother Amos, you want to open us up?
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come this morning to worship in your house, Lord. We just thank you for allowing us to come once again to be brother and sister together. Lord, we just ask that you would be with Brother Dan as he brings the word this morning at Sunday school, and also with Brother Don as he brings the message for the church. Lord, we just give you praise and glory for all that you've done. We still ask for forgiveness for our country, for where it's failed, Lord.
Yes.
And we also ask that you would lift up Israel, Jerusalem, your chosen people, Lord, because they're surrounded by the enemy, and we just ask that you would protect them. Help us to continue to protect them also. We give you praise and glory for all, in your name we pray.
Amen. Let me just start out with one of the main points. We're in war right now. And it's a war going on, that's been going on in the heavenlies all along. But it's now on the earth. And it's not a conventional war like we're used to. In a war, now I'm not a soldier. I have been in the armed forces. I think in a war, there are battles. You win some battles, you lose some. The object is to win the war. Well, we know how we know the war is going to be won in the end, but we're in it right now. In the 12th chapter of Revelation, And I say we're in a war because we see what's happened. Our church and our community have been attacked by a virus that's man-made. And I say man-made, the devil's behind it.
That's right.
Who else could think up something that would target? And there's more information coming out as we go. This thing targets older people and weak people. The young folks don't have as bad a time. So if you look at it like that, the more experienced people, the ones that
know the truth.
right and will speak out, and the ones that are weak, they're targeted by this. I know anybody can catch it, but it's rougher on them, and we see that. It's happened here. And in a war, we've got to do everything we know to do. Now, I know there's been people that have said, if we had enough faith, we'd keep going to church, not shut the church down. But here's how I see it. We're in a war, and we've got to do what we know we need to do.
Yeah.
And if that means staying in a foxhole for a little while and then coming out, regroup, then we can do that. I know churches that hadn't shut down since this thing started. And I don't understand it. And they hadn't had anybody. Well, we hadn't had anybody until this last race to mount anything. But that just tells me that we're doing something right. The enemy's not going to attack somebody that's not threatening them. So just by that, we know we're doing something right. And we need to keep doing it. In Revelation chapter 12, there's a Revelation just kind of, chapter 12 is stuck right in the middle of it, and it's different from any chapter in there. It tells the whole story. There appeared in a great wonder in heaven a woman clothed with the sun. She had a child. The child appeared, another wonder in heaven. Behold, a red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns. We're going to see a beast later on that looks just like that. 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 crowns on his head. His tail drew a third part of the stars from heaven. Well, let me sum this up. This is Jesus being born in the earth, and the devil comes after him. We know the story. That actually happened. In Revelation, it's just a story, picture of it, but it actually happened. And all the way through, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon fought, prevailed not, in verse 8. Neither was there place found any more in heaven. Jesus said when he walked the earth, I beheld Satan like lightning falling out of heaven. The great dragon, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. Now that defines the dragon, the devil and Satan. He deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. What does it say? That old dragon is Satan, and he deceives Mount Calvary, United States, no, it says the whole world. So we're getting definitions as we go. What did Satan tempt Jesus with? Provision, turning a stone into bread. He took him to a high mountain and he looked over all the nations of the world and he said, if you'll fall down and worship me, I'll put you over all of them. He had deceived the whole world back then. It's through deception. And pinnacle of the temple. The temple in their day was the only way to get to God. You had to go through Israel, through the temple. And they had set up money tables buying and selling and making money for themselves off of the church. The devil had infiltrated the church. Well, he's the same thing today. He's still got the world to see. And the story's going to get bigger and broader as we go. But that all was happening back then. I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. He's cast down to the earth. See, later in this story, he's cast down to the earth. He's here where we are. You can see him. I mean, look at what's going on. You can see him. He is not for us. He's against us. But Jesus took authority over him when Jesus walked the earth, and when Jesus went back to heaven, he gave us that authority. So if we're the light that's in the earth now, the church I'm talking about, the real church, blood-bought, spirit-filled church, then the devil's after us just like he was Jesus. And you're going to see it. It talks about that all the way through Revelation. It's not Republicans against Democrats or black against white or poor people against rich people. That's all cover story. It's the devil against Jesus. That's what it amounts to. And anybody that follows Jesus, he hates him with a passion. And he'll kill everybody he can to get to him. That's what it all boils down to. Now, in verse 11, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony.
Hallelujah.
And they loved not their lives unto death. Now, that's not after we get to heaven. That's now.
That's right.
Here and now. What all the apostles, except for John, were martyred. And they tried to kill John in boiling oil, and it didn't boil. Scared the daylights out of him, and they put him on that island, get him out of their hair. He was the only one. And he's the one that wrote this book on the island, when he was on that island. Now, in verse 17, let's skip over that. And the dragon was wroth with the woman that had the child, which is Israel, and the church. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Okay, that's where we are now. The devil's going to make war. Israel was dispersed among the nations way back then, and they just come together as a nation in 70 years, 70-something years. But the devil's been after them, and he's been after the Christians. And that's what this verse said. Dispersed all over the world. They're everywhere, all over the world. And the devil's after. Why else would that be? The first thing the devil does when he gets control is he starts instituting things that are directly against what the church teaches, what Jesus taught. And they try to shut the church up. It's okay to go to Walmart, but don't go to church.
Yeah.
It's all right to keep the big boys open, but shut the small businesses down. Now, it's not going to get political. I'm just bringing out this stuff. Let's just see what's going on. I believe the church was disconnected from the government in Lyndon Johnson's times, because Lyndon Johnson had a preacher that was pounding on him for stealing an election. That's how he got into office to begin with.
That's right. That's right.
That's the truth. That's in history. And Lyndon Johnson, as soon as he got in the Senate, made up a bill to shut the church down, get them out of politics. And we've got the mindset, I was that high when all that happened. I've heard that all my life. Well, it's a separation between church and state. Just drilled into it. But if we're Christian, we're citizens. Paul, you take his example. They put him in chains and was fixing to whip him. And he said, are you going to whip a Roman citizen? And that scared the daylights out of him. Now, Paul used his testimony of Jesus, but he also used his Roman citizenship. Now, I'm a Christian first, and I teach the word first. Brother Don preaches the word first. He's pastor, and he preaches it straight out of the book. But we're also American citizens, and we've got rights, or supposed to have. Supposed to have. Supposedly. There's been a lot of bloodshed over the last over 200 years for us to have that right. And now we see it trying to be taken away from it. And it's been happening for a long time, because how long has the devil deceived the nation? As long as there's been a nation. That's what he's been after. Okay. Now, one thing about the book of Revelation, I believe, is it's written in layers. It's not exactly in chronological order, but you read one part of it, and that tells you the story from one perspective. And then you read another part of it, and it tells you the same story from another perspective. And you've got to lay them on one on top of the other to see that it's not in chronological order. Which trump is blown, I don't know. I don't. But you can look in here and you can see. I think we can find where we are right now. Not exactly. We can find out about where we are right now. And when I say it's layered, it's like the Gospels. Each Gospel is different from the other Gospel, but they all tell the same story. They're all talking about the ministry of Jesus until from the birth to his ascension. But each one of them tell it different. If you lay them all on top of each other, then you've got the whole story. You've got a clear picture of it. If you take what Matthew says, and Mark says, and Luke says, and John says, you've got a clear picture about what goes on. If somebody asks you, well, what Brother Don teach about? You go around and ask every one of you, how many of us is in here going to get different stories?
Yep.
And some of them might say, well, did you even go? I mean, but you know what I mean. One person will get one thing and somebody else gets something else. And I think that's what Revelation is, the main body of it. And chapter 12 tells the whole story. Now, what have we been discussing for a long time in Sunday school? I had to look back to see what we did last, but it's been basically about the end times. Even when we was going through the book of John, we covered the end times a lot. And we looked at signs that's happened. I believe just about all the signs that Jesus spoke of that would happen at the end have already happened. And we're just waiting on him. But in the book of Revelation, in chapter 14, we're going to kind of skip around here. In chapter 14, verse 6, And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. Now what Brother Don got, the message he got before they ever built this building, you build a building, they'll come. And we heard the Lord say something about there's going to be a revival. It's revival coming. Now I believe we've seen this building fill up, but it's not going to be packed today. It wasn't packed the last time we came here. We hadn't really seen that happen yet. I believe we're going to see the time when it's packed every time we open it up. And there's going to be a great revival. Now I think it's coming true. It is. And you could say it has come true because the building's been packed. But I think there's an angel in the heavens. If he's not already, he's fixing to be. And the first one, there's three angels. The first one is flying in the midst of heaven, having an everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, all over the world. The revival's going on. Now later on in this 14th chapter is when Jesus comes back. So before he comes back, we're going to see these things right here. Right before. And there's a lot of people right now that claim to have a message from the Lord, and I got no reason not to believe them, that Jesus has appeared to them in vision or dream or whatever, and tells them, you go tell them, I'm coming soon. I'm coming soon. And those people got their own fire doing what Jesus told them to do. Some of them quit everything they're doing just to do that. And you know by that they believe what they saw. And Jesus don't lie. If he says he's coming soon, he's coming soon, he's coming soon,
Yes.
then he's coming soon. I don't know when. I don't. And I think that's for good reason. We just need to do what he tells us to do. If when he comes, he finds us doing what he tells us to do, we're okay. We're fine. The second angel, in verse 8, there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So we'd have to get a definition for Babylon. What is Babylon? I've heard all kinds of stuff, and most of them right about Babylon. But if you're just going to take the book of Revelation and go by what the verses say, let's get a definition. If we're going to find Babylon, the next place to look is chapter 16, verse 19. Let's just see what Revelation says there. That verse over there says, Babylon is fallen, that great city. Well, they're saying Babylon is fallen. I don't think it's fallen yet. He's saying it's fallen. All of these three angels right here is going to be happening at the same time. The next angel that comes is saying, if any man worship the beast in his image, receive not the mark in his forehead. We already know. That's the world system. I think the Antichrist will wind up being one person, but it may not. Antichrist has been here, spirit of Antichrist, since the apostles' time. What's Antichrist mean? Against Christ. Against Christ. Anything that is against Christ. But what is Babylon? In chapter 16, verse 19, it says, and the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Great Babylon is fallen. That great city is divided into three parts. Now, I have said before, and it could be, there's an actual city on earth. And Jerusalem right now is divided into three parts. But this could also mean the city is divided into three parts. There's three parts to the city, or three separate cities. And I think that's what we're beginning to see. I don't know, we're going to have to wait and see. I'm not going to comment on that yet. But we can see a city in our nation that has been the habitation of demons, I think. And they got a fence around it right now. And the army,
They're all divided.
and the army guard. Now, they're not protecting that city against any rioters. There's no rioters up there. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But there's other cities on earth just as bad as Washington, or worse. And what we're talking about, Babylon, and we've gone over this before. Chapter 17, verse 1. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, talked to me, saying unto me, Come hither, I'll show you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Well now, Babylon, and it goes on, it tells you, she sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. In verse 15, it said, And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest where the whore sits are people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So we're getting definitions out of Scripture. When it tells us in verse 1, she's being judged and sits upon many waters. The many waters are people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. That's not just one nation. That's not just one city. That's not just one people group. That's the whole world. That's the whole world. Okay, we're still getting definitions. The kings, in verse 2, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. How do you commit it? What is fornication? You fooling with something you ain't supposed to be fooling. That's my definition. And nobody wants to. That's good enough. I mean, I've got a way I'm supposed to be living. She's sitting right there. But if I go diddling around with somebody else, I'm committing fornication. I'm out there doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. I mean, we're all grown-ups here. We know what this means. These kings have committed fornication with this woman here. They've got a way they're supposed to be doing. But they're over here diddling around where they're not supposed to be diddling around. And she's sitting on the waters with a whole lot of them. Now, what does a prostitute do? She sells herself to as many as will pay. And we're getting definitions for all this stuff. That's why I'm saying we need to get a clear idea of what's going on here. Okay, the kings, with whom the kings of the earth. Well, who are these kings? Verse 12. We're talking about a beast. You know, we saw the beast before. Got 7 heads, 10 crowns, 10 horns, and the horns got 10 crowns. Verse 12, And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. They're fornicating with the woman on the beast. Give their power to the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome. For he is Lord of lords, King of kings, and they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. And we need to be called, chosen, and faithful if we're going to follow the Lamb and fight that beast. What's the beast? 10 kings that he's given power to the beast and the horse riding on him. That's a system. That's the world's system. That's taken, well, I don't need to get into that right now. Verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. This woman is controlling the kings because they're committing adultery with her. And now they can't get out of it. What's going to happen just as soon as a politician gets caught doing something they're not supposed to be doing, or anybody else, it don't have to be a politician. They get caught doing somewhere they're not supposed to be doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and now the person that they've been doing it with can say, all right, you do what I ask you to do,
Hush,
or I'm going to drag it out into the light, and I'm going to ruin you. Blackmail. Blackmail. Once you see this, it's so simple. The devil's been using these tricks forever. Or as long as there's been earth and people on it. That's how he finagled Adam's authority away from him. Lied to him. If Adam would have done what God told him to instead of what the devil tempted him with, we wouldn't be in this mess. He had authority in the garden. I'm blaming it on Eve, but God gave the authority to Adam. Okay, I'm getting off track here.
It's good anyway.
Okay, chapter 17. Let's keep going in verse 3. He carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. We got some definitions now, these things. And I saw the woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple, scarlet, decked with gold, precious stones, pearls, having a gold cup in her hand. That sounds like she got plenty of money. That sounds like she's been doing her job real well. And now she's got fine clothes, all the gold, silver, full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. Now it'd be real easy to make an example out of some of our politicians. They wound up being multi-millionaires, flying around on our dime, commit fornication with this heifer right here. Right?
Right.
Upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery. Mystery. Babylon. Well, it's not. It's been a mystery for centuries, but I think we're living in a time right now that it's being revealed.
Yes.
Just how deep and just how dark this goes. Now, I'm talking about what's in the book of Revelation. This is real. It's just as real as Jesus hanging on the cross that day.
Amen.
and walking out of the tomb. It's just that real.
Yes.
This is real too. This is Jesus' angel telling me, y'all walk right out. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, blood of the martyrs of Jesus. She's what was behind Paul's blood, Peter's blood, behind all of them. It's all dealing with the devil. He's the one behind all of it. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration, how in this world could this happen? And there's no use talking about them back then. It's worse now than it was back then. Because it's worldwide now. And it's been happening right under our noses all our lives. And we hadn't seen it. Oh, some of us have. We gripe about how much taxes we pay and don't get nothing out of it. I gripe about paying into Social Security since I was 16 years old, and we just barely got enough to go to the grocery store, trying to live on it.
And there's so many of them still walking around out there in their own little bubble that's not aware of anything that's going on. They're living in their own little world. And then all of a sudden, clink, like we are here now, realizing really what's going on.
When, I started this thing out by, and you see it right here. We're in a war. We're in a war, and we got to first take orders from our king and do what he says do, but then fight. I'm not talking about fighting each other. Sometimes I gotta fight this right here.
Right.
Amen.
I gotta get this noodle up here
that's
straightened
one of the
out
biggest
before I can do anything else. And it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard first to admit that I have been wrong. Have you ever had to admit you've been wrong about
Oh,
something?
yeah.
About that finger thing there.
It's not easy. It's not.
It hurts.
It hurts. And then to be so wrong, so bad wrong, you know? And here I have been, and I noticed this just in the last few years. I'd get paid on commission, you know. Well, I'd want to run and get another load, get one more load. If I can do that enough, boy, I'll be making some money. And I get that paycheck, and that other load ain't on there. Uncle Sam took it out.
That's right. That is right.
And it just, that makes me, when I get to think about it, I want to cuss. You know? But I say, what in the world was I thinking? It's this heifer riding on that beast. She got to get her cut first. And she's already got gold and silver and all this other stuff. Tell them, come on in here. Okay, I've already got off track here. How long are we going to do this? How long is this going to take?
The Bible says it's here to the end.
Let me read this to you. Verse 16. Chapter 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whole. Here's another twist to the story. The 10 horns are 10 kings, nations. She's been riding on these nations, controlling them. Well, the 10 horns shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree. these nations are gonna take her down. This world financial system that's corrupt, they're gonna make her naked, bring her out in the light, everybody can see her, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Sound like they're gonna destroy that world financial system. God has put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast. Even though, and I think we're fixing to see this world financial system crash and burn and be brought out into the light. But remember, Jesus hadn't come back yet. The devil is still here. This beast is still alive and well, and a false prophet is too. But there's going to be a great revival. While all this is going on, remember what we read back here.
Yes.
There's going to be a great revival that we're going to be part of. That's our job. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We got a job. We're going to watch other people doing something else. Well, we got a job right here to do.
That's right.
And we need to do that job.
Yeah.
But still know what's going on. Realize what's going on. And we're in a fight. We're in a war. And in a war, sometimes we're going to get whooped. We don't stay with it. We get back up and go again. We're going to watch this world financial system crash. And the other angel, what did the other angels say? Don't take the mark of the beast. Because the beast is still there. The beast is still working. The devil's still here. The devil's going to be on this earth till Jesus comes back. And Jesus boots him out.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that's what the Bible said. Now one thing, I'm going to skip discuss. I wanted to discuss all this, but I've talked all this time. When the apostles were standing there and they watched Jesus, first chapter of Acts, they watched Jesus stand up in the cloud. There was an angel standing there by him, and they said, why are you boys standing here watching him go up in the clouds for? He's going to come back the same way he left. Jesus is not going to come. What Jesus said? If you hear that Christ is out in the desert, don't believe it. If you hear that he's behind secret chambers, don't believe it. What the angel tell them? He's going to come in the clouds, just like he left. Now, back over here in that chapter 14, verse 14 is when Jesus comes back in the cloud. It happens right after these three angels we talked about. The first one saying, preaching the gospel. The second one talking about Babylon falling. The next one saying, don't take the mark of the beast. All that stuff's going on, I think, at the same time. Right after that, Jesus comes back. And Jesus has already showed up telling, I don't know how many people, I'm coming soon, I'm coming soon. So we're going to have to see these things before he comes back. And I think we're going to see it.